Hey guys, it's Courtney King here with King Realty and Management. I wanted to talk a little bit about buying a property with a tenant already in place. So I've got quite a few clients that like this approach, and the main reason is that you basically are cash flowing immediately after you close on the property. So you don't have to go through the process of finding a tenant and all of that good stuff. So I'll walk you through kind of how I approach it, because it's really important to take your time in looking at all of the fine details as you're negotiating the purchase of this property, okay? So number one, I basically print out all of the lease agreements for each one of the tenants. In one case, I've got a client that's buying a fourplex, so I'm carefully looking at each 4 of those lease agreements. Particularly, I'm looking at the start date and the expiration date. I'm looking at how much they pay in monthly rent. I'm looking at and documenting how much of a deposit they have on file. And also I'm looking to see if the tenants have pets, and if they do, if there's a pet agreement as well as a deposit and any additional pet income that the current owner is receiving. So oftentimes when you're negotiating, or even you see one of these properties online, some of the information may not be totally correct. So it's really important that you sift through all of the documentation. In this particular case, I noticed a couple of the leases didn't have pet agreements. I found out that the owner didn't draft a pet agreement, but they just marked on the side that there was a pet and tacked on some additional rent. So just verifying this is good, because once you have all of those numbers, you can have a more accurate idea of your return on investment and kind of how you want to structure. Secondly, when it comes to the expiration of the leases, in this particular deal, we close next week. One of the leases expires at the end, we close next month, November. We close in November. One of the leases expires at the end of October, and they've already given notice that they're moving out. The other lease actually expires at the end of November. So I have to talk to my client and see what they want to do. Some clients want the current owner to re-rent the property, which is fine. It ends up saving the client a little bit of money in terms of leasing fees and commissions. Other clients want the property, or at least one of the units, vacant when they buy the property, because then that way they can screen the future tenants the way that they want to screen, and they can just make sure that all the lease terms that are negotiated are to their satisfaction. So in this case, one of the tenants is actually going to move out, which is fine. It's one of the units that hasn't been updated. So in that case, we spend a little bit of money after we close to update that unit and end up bumping up the rents. So these are just like my thought processes when it comes to acquiring a new property. Just make sure you carefully look at everything. Look at the late fee structure on the leases. Look at any of the added addendums to make sure that you're in full compliance with the property code as well as any local ordinances. This particular property is actually in Garland, and so one thing that I'm going to check is to make sure that all of the units are registered with the city of Garland, just to make sure that they went through the appropriate inspections, so that we're in compliance, because that's one of those things later on that could be a little bit of a pain, and also could result in fines. So this is just a few things that I like to do when a client first goes under contract on a property. So it's important, for example, these clients have a option period. We're doing all of this due diligence during the option period. That way, if we find anything early on that hinders us or hinders the client from achieving their real estate goals, then we can always terminate and not lose any of their earnest money. If you are considering buying a property that's already occupied with a tenant and you want me to kind of coach you or guide you through it, definitely reach out to us. We're at kingrealtytx.com. You can comment below, you can send me a private message, and this is probably one of my most favorite parts of real estate investing, the acquisition part and the wheeling and dealing, and just making sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. Because at the end of the day, when I can, a year or even 6 months from now, approach my client and show them, wow, look at how much money you've made, and wow, this is such a great buy, then I get all of the satisfaction, and obviously my clients are happy. So again, we're at kingrealttx.com, and of course I'm going to continue to bring you awesome content. I've been a little bit MIA lately because we're working on some very cool projects, which I always say I can't share it with you yet, but as soon as I'm able to share it with you, I definitely will. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you later.